around 2021 or 2020, the assets under management were roughly around 180 billion rupees, right? Around that time, am I right? Or was it, and then in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a significant rise in assets under management.
Yeah, last 5 years, I think it's more than doubled now.
More than doubled,
where
exactly.
the industry is now close to 2 trillion.
Yet you say it is in its infancy. Why is that?
Because as a percentage of GDP, I think it's about 2 to 3% of GDP. If you look at India, it's about 20%. If you look at developed countries, it's like close to 100% of GDP. So even in terms of number of investors, I think only, in a population of 240 million, there are less than 1 million investors invested in mutual funds. So a lot of potential people, it's an awareness issue. People are generally not aware of the benefits of mutual funds. And I think it's a challenge to go reach people because we have relatively smaller budgets versus, banks and so on. But I think with the digital era coming in, it's getting relatively easier to increase our outreach.
As fund managers, as asset managers, you have access to a lot of people's savings, wealth, in a way that the government on the whole doesn't. Government sort of taxes, but you have access to their savings. And if you were to mobilize and channel those savings into these new areas, from infrastructure to real estate and other things, you could share the benefits of that growth with a larger number of people.
Absolutely.
Right?
You see, typically a common man keeps the money in a bank. And his or her dream is to build a house. But in a bank, he's earning a lower return and the real estate value is going up at a much higher pace. He's never able to catch up. He's never able to build that house. So for him to have that opportunity to invest even small amounts in our real estate fund, and where, in a few years, because he's invested in a real estate fund, the value will hopefully grow more over time. And he'll then be in a position at one stage to get out of our fund and have enough money to build his own house. So those opportunities that are not available to a common man today, to go into, agriculture, high level agriculture projects, livestock projects, as you said, water related projects, water cleaning, whatever, sanitation, and so on. Those fields will open up for an investor to invest in.
What are some of the other assets that you think can be successfully privatized? And of course, privatization is a difficult subject in a developing country where a lot of employment is generated from the government. So how do you get around that and make a successful case for privatization of these assets? Apart from the economic case, what is the case for the people?
Well, you see, first of all, if the taxpayers' money, $5 billion is going to subsidize these sort of mostly inefficient organizations, that's a loss of the people. These taxes are coming from the people to start with. I think there's a case that, obviously these state-owned enterprises have a lot of employees. So there's a case that you need to be sympathetic to that. You need to come out with good golden handshake programs where they go reasonably happy. Okay, and I would say, even if you just tell, let's say one third of the government employees, okay, just go home.
We'll give you
your salary, and when you retire, we'll pay you the pension as well. Don't come to office. Even then, the government can save a lot of money. The transportation, all those expenses,
all those perks and all,
and perks and so on.
Yeah.
So even if that, and I think a lot of those employees can go to their hometowns and do something. Allow them to do other businesses. Pay them the salary that they're getting, and allow them to do whatever they can do. Open a shop or go teach in a school or whatever. And let them earn that extra money. But at least it will take your burden, away. And there are different, for example, several state-owned enterprises listed on the stock exchange. And those can be, sold, at least some of the holding that if the government wants to sell, PTCL, OGDC, PPL, ESO, that can be easily done. Foreign fund managers would be quite interesting to buy, and then the sovereign funds. We know that Middle East, ADIA, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, PIF in Saudi Arabia, these are huge sovereign funds.
Yes.
they'll be quite interested in buying, shares, 10, 20% of the holdings of these listed companies. And then those that are not listed, you talk about railways. Again, the railway has so much of land. If the company can be segregated into operational area and land, I think one of the ways the government can reduce its debt. Government and these state-owned enterprises, government departments, they have huge chunks of lands. And this land is worth tens of billions of dollars.
Yes.
Okay. So I think it is time that the government auction these lands. I think that, that legacy of giving land away to institutions or government officials has to go away. I think government land should only be auctioned. I think there should be a law that no government land will be given to any institution or any individual,
free of cost. Or
free of cost or subsidized.
Yeah.
I mean, government land should only be auctioned.
Yes.
If you want to reward a government official, he's doing a good job,
you do it on performance.
Pay him a good performance bonus. But there's no point in handing government land to government officials or politicians or public figures or whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I think that has to change.
One of the things that you mentioned in your papers is that we have to avoid default at all costs, and I agree with you. But then you also mentioned that we have to be away from more on geoeconomics rather than geopolitics. But is it possible to avoid default, and is it possible to focus on finances without involving geopolitics? Because Pakistan does sit at a very critical space on the map.
Yeah.
Right? You are nestled underneath China. We have a fantastic Belt and Road initiative, leading from the north to the deep water port in Gwadar, Balochistan. You are flanked by Middle East and then India and the Far East. So it is a very strategic location. How do you separate, and is it even possible to separate geopolitics from the financial needs of the country?
Yeah, I mean, good point. You see, I have not said that we can ignore geopolitics, but I've said that, historically, geopolitics in Pakistan have superseded geoeconomics.
I see.
We've been more focused on geopolitics, and it paid us off as well, because as I mentioned before, we were getting easy dollars from the US, for the foreign wars. So geopolitics was paying us, and therefore we ignored geoeconomics. And that cannot be done. But for geoeconomics also, you need geopolitics. But obviously, that balance between China and US has to be kept. A lot of countries are doing that.
Indeed.
I think we can do that. We need to have good relations on both ends. But, when you talk about another factor in geopolitics, and that's India.
Yes.
My view is we can benefit a lot by opening trade with India. Okay, so now here comes geoeconomics. Okay, so and this route, which if you look at the old maps, going back 100 years, there was this route going through the heart of Pakistan, which would carry goods from let's say what we call now Bangladesh and even maybe further off through the whole of India, what is now Pakistan, to Central Asian republics.
Yes, the Silk Route.
And back. This route has been blocked for the last 78 years. Okay, we open that route, we will be the biggest beneficiary of that. And so trade, opening these routes, because India is next door, and whether we need to import medicines or food items, or even industry, I want to set up now. We need to go to import substitution because we do not have that many dollars to import everything. For import substitution, we need to set up factories here, industry here in Pakistan, and if we buy industry from India, it will be a lot more cheaper than buying industry from anywhere else. The transportation cost, but even otherwise. Yeah. So a lot what India produces, we can get much cheaper than what we import from anywhere else. So I think it's time now that we look at, opening trade with India. Obviously, our stance on Kashmir, I mean, we continue to hold that stance. We know countries which have issues, but they do trade. Look at India and China. Their trade is in excess of $100 billion, despite of the fact that even recently they had a skirmish or two where several soldiers died on both sides. So they have border disputes, but they continue to do trade and investment. Look at China and Vietnam. China and Taiwan.
Yes.
Where they trade despite of the dispute. So you'll find several such cases in the world. We continue with our stance on Kashmir, but at the same time, I mean, wherever it is beneficial for us to trade, we should. So I think we should benefit, the strategic position that we have, and especially linking, the East with the West.
Yes,
on
indeed.
Both sides. I think we should benefit from that.
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about yourself as a person. How has your own expectation of the country and from yourself changed over the years? Did you see yourself being in this position that you are in today, where you can make a difference, where you've impacted a major industry? And where do you see it going in the future? And what do you expect from yourself and from people around you now?
Well, I owe a lot to this country. I mean, I think to have that opportunity to come up, when I became CEO of this company, I was around 45 years of age. That in itself was, something new, because before you would become a CEO when you were like 55 or 57. So even that was a transition where you could become a CEO at 45. So I have seen, obviously a lot of improvements as well. And I think the amount of, respect and recognition I've got, I could not have got it in any other country. So, I've really enjoyed, and I'm very happy with, certainly, I think that the potential of this country is a lot more than what we have achieved, and I think some of these roadblocks we have talked about, if they're removed, the country can grow faster. The people can certainly progress more as well. So that's an area where I sometimes do feel frustrated or a bit depressed. We have such good youth, I see people in offices, working hard till late night, but 70% of the outcomes are linked to the macro environment.
That's true.
And 30% are linked to what we do in our offices.
Yes.
And I think even that realization is not there even among professionals or even entrepreneurs. So that's why we have focused more on our business and less on changing the direction of the government.
True.
I think professionals have a role, a responsibility of not only trying to take their companies to the top, but also, engaging with the government, with our civil society, to bring reforms. Because unless those reforms take place, you can only take your company to a certain level. You cannot go beyond that. Okay, so I think we need to realize that, if the macros are well, a country like India, which is on the rise. So, if there are 10 people who will start a new business, maybe, 7 or 8 will be successful because, the tide is in favor of them. Here, things are moving slowly. So it's more of a challenge when you start a new business to be successful, or even running your existing business. So I think we as professionals have a responsibility to engage more with the government, to change the mindset there, to engage more with the civil society, to bring that change, which goes beyond just our call of duty of working, within our own company.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amjad. This has been a
Rabel.
wonderful and pleasurable discussion with you.
Same here.
Thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Thank you.